Hi everyone, welcome to another competitive analysis video in the style of my Andromeda versus New Angela Sol video that I did last time. Now, this is the very first video I'm going to upload that adheres to the new FAQ, where Astro is limited to 1 per deck. I'm also going to be testing this out in conjunction with the new Most Wanted list, which features a lot of Anarch cards on the Most Wanted list. So now Files Outside is a lot worse, you don't really want to play it. But if you miss the one-size-fits-all breaker solution that you used to have with Wildside Files, well, don't worry, there are still other influence-free options available in faction, namely Ether and DDoS. These cards are still very oppressive, and you can still bust through servers pretty easily with just those two. So I'm going to be trying out SIPHON Max, which is rather unaffected by the Most Wanted list. Davids will cause influence, Parasites will cause influence if you use any of those cards, but otherwise you're good to go. And you can spend those very precious influence on Siphons instead. And I'm going to run lots of Ice Destruction as well. So let's see how this goes. I'm up against NEH. Yes, my opponent is also playing a post-Most Wanted list deck, so naked Astro Scripts are something that I don't really expect to see too much of. I mean, sure, rushing out a naked Astro Script is still good, but it's your only one in your deck, so I don't have to worry about the Astro Tranche so much, and that really changes a lot of things. This means that I'm not really pressured to check remotes. So what do I do here? My opponent leaves R&D unguarded, fearing a Siphon, but I don't have Siphon in hand. Instead, I have a Keyhole. What should you do in this situation? Pause the video, think for it yourself. Okay, that didn't need much thinking, did it? It's pretty obvious. Sure gamble, Keyhole, Keyhole third click, and depending on what you keyhole, you might either keyhole last click or you might run archives. But regardless of whether I get an agenda on this keyhole run or not, I think I would keyhole twice, even if he might be running Jackson Howard. Here I see NAPD versus Jackson Howard, and this is a pretty tough choice. Which would you mill? Think about it. I mean, okay, it's pretty obvious here as well. You mill the Jackson Howard because you don't really want to steal the NAPD, do you? With so few credits to your name, stealing NAPD is probably a bad choice. And binning one Jackson Howard means that there are only two left to save his other agendas, so Jackson Howard's the obvious choice here. However, if it were, say, Project Bew versus Jackson Howard, that would be a lot more tricky. I'm not actually sure which one's the right choice. If any of you have experience with Siphon Keyhole decks and would like to contribute, please let me know. Anyway, the video cut out a bit here, but for my fourth click, I keyholed again because it was Jackson in the bin, and I found an Exploder-Palooza, so that goes in the bin. Now, what do you do here? This is where I really want you to pause the video and think about it. What is your course of action for this turn? So as a max Siphon Keyhole deck, one thing you realize is that you have immense power over your opponent's centrals, and this situation perfectly illustrates that. We have all vectors of attack. Archives will net us 2 agenda points. We have R&D pressure via Keyhole. We have HQ pressure via same old Siphon in our hand, and the best thing is we have the DDoS in our hand, so any and all of these options are possible. So it might seem very tempting to play the DDoS here. However, whether you're going for the Siphon route or the Keyhole route, I would run Archives first. Get the 2 agenda points secured or force a Jackson Howard out. That is the main priority. Then you can decide later on what you want to do. But in general, if you're not about to win the game, if you're not at match point, the right thing to do is to actually play a count Siphon. You need the money over the agendas. So I want to Siphon, and the best thing to do would be firstly to fetch the Exploder-Palooza, bring him up to 10 credits so that you get maximum Siphon coverage, and then play the same old thing and hold the Siphon for 1 turn. So next turn, if he doesn't react by re-icing HQ, I'm going to Siphon same old Siphon. That will drain him of 10 credits, definitely make him go broke, force him to res a couple of assets. That would be fantastic. So I do that right here. DDoS, account Siphon, same old Siphon. That takes all 4 clicks. This is why I had to install the same old thing last turn. This is why I couldn't play the Siphon last turn. If I want the DDoS to cover both Siphons, I need to play them all in the same turn. This is why I needed to set up the same old thing, and he does, oddly enough, doesn't res a Sand. So he goes completely broke and I gain 20 credits, just like that. He doesn't res anything. That is a huge setback for my opponent, and with this many credits, I am in the driver's seat. And it's quite clear that my opponent isn't playing kill because he doesn't attempt to kill me with 4 tags. So when you have a lot of credits, this is when you can play Ether and go ham on R&D. This is how you win. You snowball on HQ, you attack R&D, you win before they set up any more ice. He reses an Archangel in my face, which is a very big pain. That is 5 credits to break each time. I can't sustain that, despite having 20 something credits. So I draw, and boom! Perfect solution at the perfect time. The spoon arrives. I'm gonna run the Bill here, that keyhole off R&D, and I force out the first Jackson. Tracking your opponent's Jacksons are very important in this matchup. So with 2 Jacksons left in circulation, it gets somewhat easier, but one of the Jacksons that I milled earlier goes back to R&D, so you have to keep that in mind. So my opponent spends a couple of clicks stabilizing, and I punish that with my newfound spoon. Archangel goes in the bin, and I cannot access on my first run, but I can keyhole on the second run. Second Jackson goes in the bin. If I find the last one, I'm good to go. There's an NEPD contract here, that goes in the bin. Last click, why not keyhole again? And I see breaking news and Project Bill goes in the bin. I also see an encryption protocol, which hints to me that my opponent is going for up spam. The subliminal messaging also hints to me that my opponent is playing G's model bioroids. I think I saw that on one of the keyhole runs as well. So now it's a priority to hit archives as quickly as I can to make sure that he doesn't find the last Jackson Howard before I steal a bunch of his agendas. But first, I want to hit R&D with keyholes to hopefully close out the game. And I install the David because I suspect that he has some high strength eyes on R&D. It's not uncommon to see high strength eyes out of any H, be it wraparound or toll booth. So I'm going to run archives here, and he does show the final Jackson Howard, which is a very big pain because I would probably have won the game right off if not for that. So the Jackson Howard, he did not shuffle all 3 agendas. He chose to shuffle his last copy of Jackson Howard into the R&D instead of shuffling the Palooza. He wants the 5 credits. So that was a game-saving moment for my opponent. The fact that he found the last Jackson Howard allowed him to evade what was otherwise sure doom. And thus begins his slow climb out of poverty. Well, he's not really in poverty anymore, but he stabilizes. With 2 eyes on HQ, it's going to be pretty hard to land a Siphon. I do have the option of Deja Vu into account Siphon. However, I must keep in mind that I still need to guarantee that I have levy access. So, a possible move here would be to same old Siphon, except that you notice how quickly my 20-something credits drained. I'm now down to 3 credits. I cannot same old Siphon on HQ. So I'm actually forced to click for credits here. Credit clicker 3000 in action. Unfortunately, my opponent is playing the worst possible deck against Max. Not only is it acid spam, which is very difficult to contest because you're not wizard, he's also playing team sponsorship, biotic labor. So you see all the HB cards, and that is what allows him to play G's model bioroids for free, being an alliance card. He biotics out a Bill. That's fine. The biggest problem is not scoring the 2 agenda points. He doesn't even get an astral counter for his efforts. The biggest problem is the 2 free triggers of team sponsorship. So R&D becomes very thick at this point, and I can't afford to trash the team sponsorships. Team sponsorships are the biggest nightmare because it allows him to install ice for free and install all the money assets from his hand, from archives. That's just very bad news. And I'm just gonna check his remotes just to keep it honest, and then poke around on R&D because he only has 2 credits. So I'm trying to get a successful keyhole run here. He resists a Quandary, which I would actually break with Ether, so I accidentally jacked out there. So I'm going to re-keyhole, break the Quandary, and let's see what we get from this keyhole run. We see Jeeves, Sansan, and Vanilla. That's not what you want to see. It doesn't really matter what I trash here. So I just trash a Jeeves. It doesn't, all I want to see right now is agenda. So I'm going to parasite the Quandary. I'm forced to trash the David because I'm out of memory, which is really annoying. That David didn't really do much. And I'm going to kill one last time. Again, I need to suppress my opponent while he's low on credits because I don't see myself playing Siphon anytime soon. Again, no dice on the keyhole. 3 non-agendas. This is looking very grim for me all of a sudden. That was a very strong early game, keyholing about 5 agendas in the bin. My opponent stabilizing. 2 team sponsorships, a pack campaign running. I can't contest any of that. Big trouble for me. Being on only 1 credit and drawing to a day job, it makes perfect sense for me to keep the day job in hand and plan to day job next turn. Unfortunately, this gives my opponent a huge opening. 2 whole turns where I cannot contest him, where he's just spamming assets. I have to let that go. I have to completely let that go and play the day job. I don't have a choice. I need the credit level to threaten a Siphon or a keyhole. At this point, same old thing to Siphon is definitely something on the books, as is multiple keyhole runs into an archives run. So now my opponent is thinking, he probably wants to score an agenda right now. I gave him a lot of breathing room. And he's probably thinking of what to trigger with team sponsorship. Nope, he clicks for 3 credits, so that is quite huge for me. This gives me an opportunity to deja vu for... What am I going to get? It's a David. I need the David because I expect the ice is going to be very expensive to break at this point. Archangels, Tobus, wraparounds, you name it. So I keyhole and he shows absolutely no resistance. I mill a project Bew. This is my 6th point if I can get into archives. My opponent has one last Jackson. It might be on the table, so my first priority right now is to run archives. Run archives, fetch the Bew, or force the final Jackson out. My opponent fast advances a Astro Script on the Sansan. That's the absolute last thing you want to see. Not only does he get an Astro token, he has a rare Sansan, which makes it so much easier to score agendas. And I'm not going to contest the Sansan. I don't have the money to. I need the money to win on Centrals. So my opponent gets 2 team sponsorship triggers, and very wisely, good opponent, ices up archives. So this makes it very difficult for me to go for the Bew, and he knows I was going for the Bew next turn. So what do I do here? That depends on what I draw with Max. Let's start my turn, and we'll find out. But yes, that was a very huge setback, and it is arguable that I should have tried to Siphon instead of keyhole him the last turn, but he could dodge the Siphon with Sansan anyway. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to get the double Siphon in that early, and I wanted him to be on a high credit level. The last thing you want to do is to spend lots of money on Ether on a Siphon run, and then they say, oh, I'm going to res all my Sansans or my pair campaigns, now I'm going to gain drip economy. Well, you can't Siphon me, and you can't even choose to access instead. So that's the worst. Asset Spam is a bad matchup because they can duck Siphons by resing Sansans. That is something you always have to keep in mind. You either want to Siphon them to keep them poor so that you can keyhole for the rest of your turn without resistance, or you want to Siphon them when they're really rich and hopefully get chain Siphons like I did earlier in the game. So now, oh, I'm not getting max draw. I'm out of deck. At this point, I should be levying. However, knowing that the game is going to be over very, very soon with a rare Sansan and Astro Script, playing levy makes absolutely no sense. I'm going to keyhole here. I'm going to keyhole and hope that he shows no resistance once again, and he doesn't. The keyhole gets me a Jackson, Mumble Temple, and shipment from Sansan. I instinctively trash the Jackson. Is that the right play? Of course, given the way I asked that question, the answer is no. That was a stupid play. Can anyone tell me why that's a stupid play? That's right. He has 2 res team sponsorships that I don't intend to trash. By milling the Jackson Howard, I'm giving him unfettered access to the Jackson Howard. If it were in his deck, he would be forced to draw for it, which is very unreliable. 1 in what? 1 in double digit numbers. But by putting the Jackson in the bin, with a rare Sansan and an Astro Script, I'm basically saying, here, have the Jackson Howard on a silver platter. So I had to run amok, same old thing, run amok, for my last clicks, in order to steal the Bew in archives before he gets his next turn. He reses a Quandary to keep me out. I get to trash a Quandary with run amok. However, that is the consolation prize. It's not the main prize I wanted, which is match point with the Project Bew. Now that he has Jackson and Bew in archives, this is very dangerous. If he scores an agenda next turn, and he has the credits to do so, he will resurrect Jackson Howard, the Lord and Savior, in a remote, so that he can reshuffle Project Bew into R&D during his turn. So that was a very big mistake on my part. By milling the Jackson Howard, I milled my chances of winning. It sounds counterintuitive. It's the last Jackson Howard. You obviously want to mill it in most other matchups, but not against a team sponsorship deck. That was a big mistake. So I ran archives here, and thankfully he didn't score an agenda last turn. That was a blessing. So he reses a vanilla. I immediately kill it with knife, kill it with fire, kill it with Icar, and now I get access to archives. Knowing that the final Jackson Howard is in the bin, I can safely retrieve the Bew. But I'm going for the win here because I have one more click to run archives. So I keyhole here. No dice, no agendas. Very unfortunate. That would have won me the game right here. But since I don't get it, it's okay. I'm just going to mill some random card and then run archives for match point. So I'm up 6 points to 4, but my opponent has a rare Sansan and 2 scored agendas. The fact that my opponent didn't attempt to score an agenda last turn is probably an indication that there's no agendas in his hand either. So R&D should be pretty stacked, but I keep whiffing. and that's a big problem. So now my opponent, presumably finding an agenda, goes for the score. Triggering G's Mortoboroids, scores Exploded Palooza from hand, and installing Archives Ice, installing R&D Ice. Both the Vanilla and the Quandary are back to haunt me, and I've used up my Parasite and my Knife and my Runner Mox. So I'm gonna Keyhole here. It's a Quandary. I can break it because it's on R&D, so it doesn't really end the run for me. I'm gonna continue to the base of the server to find no agendas. Oh, this is hurting me so bad. So I don't really have any choice at this point. My opponent's on match point with an Astro Token and a Sense Hand. I need to just keep keyholing until I win. I keyhole here to find the Project View. Okay, we've got it. Nope, we haven't. With 2 clicks left and only 4 credits, I realize I am 1 click or 1 credit short of winning the game. 1 click and 1 credit for that matter. If the View came on the first keyhole, I would have won. Why? Think about it, look at my archives, and figure it out for yourself. If I had keyhole on my first click and got the view, I would be on 3 credits, 3 clicks and 5 credits. What would I do to win the game? Assume I have 3 clicks and 5 credits. How will I win the game with a vanilla on archives this turn? Well, the answer is simple, Run Amok. Run Amok is Max's version of Blackmail. Without bad publicity, you can't play Blackmail, but Run Amok does basically the same thing. It gives you straight access to a server unless your opponent decides to rest the ice, in which case the ice goes away and you can run again the next click. So if I had 3 clicks and 5 credits, I would Deja Vu for the Run Amok archives, and then run archives again if he decides to resist with the vanilla. Either way, I would come home with the prize view in hand. But without that option, because I'm too poor and I have too few clicks to execute this, I can't do anything else. I cannot Deja Vu for Parasite. If I do, my turn would be run, he reses, I install Parasite, so that's 2 clicks gone. I don't have the final click I need to rerun archives to steal the view. And I don't have any other way of killing the vanilla. So I was done. Deja Vu was slightly too slow in that sense. With only 2 clicks, I wasn't able to make the magic happen, and my opponent found the final agenda to win the game. That was a very close match. And it just shows you how a few misplays here and there can add up to a very close loss. Thanks for watching, happy net running. Hope you found this insightful. Goodbye.